I started in the flour mill in 1980. I was working, I came up here in 79 and to go to school, and I needed a job, so I got a job with Charlie Clegg, who poured the concrete in here, and I think he's a stockholder. But I worked for him for a little bit, and then I started school, and then in summer of 1980, my brother had been working here, and I hooked up with Pete Williams and met him and some other guys that worked at the mill, and I ended up hauling chaff bags out from the front of the mill and the back of the mill out to Charlie's farm for about a month and a half, and getting that all dumped out. They offered me a job in November of 1980, and I never left. I loved it. I loved working here. If we go to...
and you became manager, right?
I did. I was the manager. I didn't know what I was getting into. So I started out on the floor crew in labor, and we did all kinds of things. Lou Lawson can attest to that. Lou was one of the former employees at the mill, and we did all kinds of things and cleaned up stuff, and packed flour. We threw 100-pound bags off our shoulders, and as I was working through there, I was always in tune with where the flour was, what our customers needed, and I worked with Pete a little bit on that. I ended up starting to get into the feed systems. Sylvia Sapp was the office manager in the early 80s, and she would send me out to customer complaints, which was a great training ground. I remember going over to Ravenna to the Central Soya plant. We used to send animal feed over there in rail cars, and Mr. Luke was in there, and I had to deal with him on found some rocks in the rail car, so I had to kind of deal with that, and that was the first time I'd ever been with a customer. Came back and we solved the problem, and Sylvia was pleased, and I went on from there. In 2000, when Star of the West bought us in '99, Pete Williams asked me to apply for the manager's position. I went in there with no thoughts of even ever getting the job, and they gave it to me. So that went on, and then we built the flour mill in 2016. We opened the flour mill down in Willard, which was 2.5 sizes bigger than this one, and we shut this plant down in September 28th of 2016. So, with all that said, you want to go to slide 2, Brad? Look at that. So in 1879, Scott T. Williams and Charles A. Williams were brothers, and they decided to build and operate a flour mill in Kent. The Williams brothers established the first brick building in this sector, and it's still there today, same place. The startup actually didn't start up till mid-1881, and under the name the Peerless Roller Mills. And the Peerless Roller Mills was the system that was in that plant. So they thought that would be a really good thing to do, and they might be able to make it work. At the time, soft red winter wheat was dominant around this area, so that was easy to get to. They spent about $40,000 to build that plant. Today, that plant, well, it'd be a hell of a lot bigger, but a new plant of some similar size could be anywhere from $60 million to $160 million. So they thought they would get a good start, and when they began, they were at 125 barrels of flour produced daily using that process. A barrel of flour weighed approximately 196 pounds, so 24,500 pounds a day was what they were making. The steam engine that ran the mill was powered from the water from the Cuyahoga River, and they milled flour and cornmeal. Slide 2, please. Oh, that's on slide
The original part of the building was this.
Correct.
And just a few years later, this wing was added.
Right. and we'll get to, that's the, yeah, that's good. Okay, so that wing was added, and then between the, get the rest of that. Oh, in 1882, they added that, they went up to 200 barrels a day. In 1 year, they had to add on to the mill. They went up to 200 barrels a day, and those round doorways there, those three, that became the retail floor. And when we owned it, later on I'll show you some other pictures, we turned that into the chlorine room. So we did that. Between the 1880s and 90s, most of the grain was supplied by Portage County farmers, and the flour was shipped in cloth bags. One of, for an example, cloth bag. Perfection cake, that was one of our big sellers. So they were shipped in cloth bags until around the 1940s, when paper became available and it was much more efficient and sanitary. They brought in wagons in the summer, and they brought in bobsleds in the winter. So they moved it that way through the 80s and 90s. In 1890, the new grain elevator was added, and that gave them more space, more product to grind, and they were ramping up and running more days of the week. They started out, I think they were running like 2 or 3 days a week. Then in 1900, C.A. Williams bought out his brother's stake, and the mill was improved to 800 barrels per day, and the name changed from the Peerless Roller Mills to the Williams Brothers Company. Can we go to slide 3? Yeah, that's the real one.
At the time, all the grain was shipped just from Portage County to this mill, and all the product was sold through Portage County to Portage County people.
A lot of business in the Kent stores. A lot of the money went to the Kent stores. So then in 1900, not only did C.A. buy out his brother and improved it to 800 barrels, but the railroads came in the 1900s. The rail siding, I should say. The railroad came in 1865, but the siding here came in the 1900s. This allowed grain to come in from outside the county, and it allowed them to ship barrels of flour on rail cars, and they went out to, I think it was Puerto Rico, they were sending flour. So that made a big difference, and it increased the sales. They were able to do that, and they were also able to widen their distribution destinations. So let's go to the next one. So these are some of the guys. I'm not in this picture. Thank you very much. So these were some of the guys that were sitting out kind of in front of the retail floor. And go to the next one.
And you can see the
those are perfection bags.
Perfection bags.
Those were the early, that was in the Peerless. See the Peerless Mills at the bottom. So that was before the Williams Brothers.
Do you know these people? The names?
These people? No, I don't. I could name them, but I would be putting names on it.
They had descendants here.
So this is cool because this was definitely the retail floor, and you can see where they had certain things marked and the pricing on them. And these guys were out there. There's a perfection cake bag up there. So this is a little later on. So let's go to the next one. And one of the reasons we put this in is it has the extension on it. It's got a good clear picture of the, sorry, I went away from the mic. It's got a good clear picture of the addition, and the wagons, this was in the summer, so the wagons were moving product in and out at that point. Next one. So there's a couple of guys that were proud of their work, and these people were really proud of their work. And so were we, weren't we, Lou?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Eat the mic.
Closer to
Okay.
They can't hear you.
Okay,
You can hold it.
go ahead to the next one. Yeah, good.
Yeah, you could.
Then you can move around.
Yeah.
You're
I
a
was a
trained
lead singer in a band at
professional.
one time. Hello? Okay, so these guys we're definitely proud of their work, and we'll move to the next one. Those were barrels. We put this picture in because we wanted to show the rail siding in here, and you can see the rail cars. Now, in the early days, some of the wheat came in on box cars, so they loaded it from the top, and they opened the slide doors on the side, and there was a big aluminum or steel plate with handles on it, and there was actually a crane that had cable on it, and you would hook that cable up to this plate, and they would drag the plate through and dump the wheat out. And then, I think it was in the 40s or 50s, there was a guy, George Sigmund, that was working there, and he got that cable wrapped around his leg, and it yanked him out of the car. Darn near pulled his leg off, but he crawled out of the car, crawled up the steps in the back, and got into the warehouse where somebody had him. He had lost his leg and got a wooden leg, and was still working there in 1980 when I started.
I heard stories of him.
You heard stories.
Yeah.
And he was the gentlest man, just a wonderful guy, worked his butt off, and stayed until he retired. So here's another picture later on. The rail cars are coming in, and this is the train shed. In the train shed was a spindle, and we used an 1.5-inch rope with a big hook on it to pull the rail cars down. And sometimes it got a little tough down in this area. Next one. So there's CA, and let's see, where am I here? Yeah. So CA was the entrepreneur that started it.
C.A. Williams?
C.A. Williams. Yep, Charles A. Williams. Austin, I think, was his middle name. So he was the president at the time, and then Dudley Williams was the vice president. Later, he ran the company. Charles Williams, his son, was the grandson of C.A., and he later was president. Then Pete Williams, 4th generation, was our guy. And Charlie was there too, and Dudley was actually there when I was started in 1980. Around that time, DCA, Donut Corporation of America, was one of their bigger customers. And DCA went out of business in the early 1970s. But Dudley was actually instrumental in promoting the Golden Charm pastry label and the other already established flour labels at the time, and that increased flour sales. Another thing about Dudley, originally he wanted to be a physician, and so he went out to Yale and was in college. I don't know if he had finished or not, but one day CA called him and said, "You need to come home. I need you to run the company or I'm going to sell it." And guess what? Dudley came home and did a great job. So, not sure why CA did it at that time. I don't know if he knew he was going to retire soon or whether he got sick or not. I don't know. But Pete told me that story, and I believe him. Let's see. Oh, the round labels. So these were some of the labels that we had on the bags. And this was 1982, so this was a paper bag. And go to the next one, Kent Special cake flour. That was a straight grade flour with chlorine gas on it. And the next one.
And you can see they specialize in the soft winter wheat, which is,
Yep.
this was the best area to grow the soft winter wheat in, and so they capitalized on that quite a bit in the
Right.
mill.
And soft red winter wheat is predominantly used for cookies, crackers, pastries, cakes, a lot of cakes, and that type of thing. It's a low ash, low protein flour. And the perfection cake was a big one. We had a bagged Brown's Hungarian cake, and it had 5 different colors on it, I think. Hell of an expensive bag, but 5 different colors. And on the back, it had this hairy-legged woman on the back with an apron on, and they said Brown's Hungarian flour is the best flour that bakers can get. The average housewife cannot make a cake like this made with Brown's Hungarian flour. Without Brown's Hungarian flour, it was the most weirdest thing I ever saw on a bag, but I just thought I'd throw that in for effect. Okay, so we have a picture of a basic picture, a very basic picture of the mill flow. So the wheat comes in to the elevator. You pull out of the elevator and you go into some other bins, and we do a blend of several bins to try and get consistency on the wheat. Then it goes through separators and aspirators and other cleaning machines, disc separators and scours, and gets cleaned, goes over magnets, gets watered, and we temper it, and it goes into a temper bin and sets for about, usually about 10 to 14 hours. And that softens up the wheat kernel so that when it hits the first break, those are corrugated rolls, and it breaks it open into a big flake instead of being a hard kernel and crushing it into small pieces. That, go to the next slide, that helps us get the bran layers separated from the endosperm, which is the white that we make the flour from. The endosperm is about 83% of the kernel. The bran is about 14%, and the wheat germ, which we separate as well, is about 2 to 2.5% of the kernels. Okay, so here's some historic photos. I love these photos. This is 1936. The crib elevator, the tall one over here, that was already built and added on to. That gave them 100,000 bushel of wheat storage in the crib. The concrete was built in 1936, and we can go to the next slide. We have several slides of the...
And first I want to point out the railroad train is on the upper tracks, which was the Erie Railroad at the time, and you can see a little bit of the Erie logo right there.
Yep. Okay, so this is another one. They're still finishing that up there. You can see the cool cars. The Walters would have been over here. So I think it was there.
And there's a bowling alley. There's a big bowling
Oh, that's
alley.
right.
Bowling
Bowling
pin.
alley. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That was there. That was the empty lot next to it. And then there it is again in another phase. I just love this stuff. So this was in 2001, I think. We had Star of the West had purchased us. We came up with a plan to repaint this, and the guys came in with high pressure washers, went all the way down, and we had paint chips all over the place, but they tried to plastic it all off, but they did a really nice job, and it lasted, what is this, it was 2000, 2001, over 20 years. So. Next.
And at the bottom you see the Star of the West trailer.
Bulk trailer, yeah.
The trailer's actually owned by Star of the West.
Right. Williams Brothers at one time had, they started out with 2 bulk trailers when we went to bulk flour, and that was in the early 80s when we bought the 2 trailers, and we were supplying Pepperidge Farms. That was when we first got into Pepperidge Farms, and man did they take off. Do you want to go on this one?
Yeah, this is interesting. This was taken from the top of what, Red? What building, probably? The first grain building?
Oh, the crib.
The crib, top of the crib.
Probably the crib.
Not the top of the silos, because this is long before the silos were built.
Right. It was a crib.
So this was, 1900 or so. But there's a lot of interesting stuff. Here's the old livery stable where the law offices are now at the west side of the bridge. Here's the lower tracks, which were the B&O tracks. The upper tracks, which is the Erie Railroad tracks. Back here, the Erie Railroad yards. There's a roundhouse back in here somewhere. You really can't make it out. Here's the passenger building for the B&O Railroad. And here's the freight building for the B&O Railroad. So some old stuff in here.
Is the depot
depot been built yet?
Which depot?
The beautiful one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, that was built in 1875.
Where is that? Where
Is this before the flood?
It's not there.
No, it's back here.
This is before the 1913 flood.
Before the flood took the lockout.
Yeah, yeah, because you can see that this is still in place. Oh, yeah. This is a hanging bridge that goes across the river down by Summit Street for workers to get across the river to work.
Okay, this was the old boiler. This boiler was from the 20s or 30s, somewhere in there.
It was, yeah, it ran all the way up to we closed.
40s, yeah. We kept that thing running. The maintenance man, Darrell Bilby was the maintenance man for a while, and he worked on it quite a bit, and Dennis Troutman towards the end kept it running until the very end when we shut the mill down in April. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Okay, the big motor, in 1947, the steam engine was replaced. Sorry? That just drops down on me. See, when I'm singing, I get loud. So, 1947, the steam engine was replaced with the big electric motor that powered the whole plant at the time. It's a 300 horsepower motor, and this little motor was called an exciter motor. So it ramped up, and then it went into this one and really kicked it in. Charlie Williams told me that, well, when we started, and you would start the mill up, the lights in the mill used to hang from cords, and they were just light bulbs, really safe. And so when the mill would start up, the lights would dim way down, and as the mill went they'd flicker a little bit, and then they'd get a little bit brighter, and they'd finally come up. Charlie Williams told me that at one time, they in the winter time, some of the guys would get a big board, or 4x4 or 6x6 or something, and they would help it in the winter time because it was so hard to start. Now, what happened when we were there, one of those belts broke one time, and there was 3 bars right there, and all 3 of them were in a V, and it pulled that right out of the wall. So after we replaced the belts, we went over all the belts and replaced the belts. We put the railing back up. Guys would go up the steps like this, really quick, just in case. Okay, this is a photo of the basement of the mill, and just some cool stuff, the belts, and at one time, well, I guess there are some wooden spouts, but at one time all the spouts were wooden and they were lined with tin. Good, next picture. So this is, we're going to take you on a tour of the office and some of the interior sections. Should I move out of your way?
No.
Sure. You guys, hi Ann! Ann Stesney. Everybody, let's give her a hand for coming. She was there for most of her life. Ann started out in the lab, and then she ended up as the office manager, and we worked together for quite a while. Yep, we worked right around there, right at the desk around the corner. And you're in some pictures already, so. And Lou Lawson worked there for most of his life too. So this is the back office. They used to do some speaking with this. This was the coolest desk. I wanted to take it home. Howard Boyle wanted it real bad too. But I had to sell it with the building. So next picture. So this was at the top of the steps coming off of Water Street and walking in.
It's just beautiful woodwork all throughout the office there.
It's gorgeous. I mean, you know, you got oak, these little corner molds on here. Just crazy. Next. Okay, this was my office. And it was Sylvia's office for a while, but after I was made manager, they said, you can move in here, and I was like, cool deal. In the fall, it was just gorgeous. The maples and everything was wonderful. This is up in the lab, going out the fire door, you'd go to the 3rd floor. The lab used to be on that new part. The first new part was over there, and we ended up turning that into a storage area and maintenance shop. So good, next one,
So why the big heavy door here?
fires.
Fires, okay.
And the one that was in the other side of on the third floor, where there was one there, and when that fire started when the roofers were doing the roofing on it, what year was that, do you remember? Was it 10? We had roofers up there and we said, no cigarette smoking, no nothing, no doing this or that. And the guy was on the other side of it. He was up on a jack, and he couldn't get the one end to seal. So he lit a torch, he had a propane torch in his bucket. He lit a torch and started heating it. And that building just sucked it in, because that wood was original from 1890.
1890 or earlier.
Or 18 something in there. So anyway, that sucked in, and the fire came, and Ron Dawson came running out of the lab, and he started to head for that door, and I said, don't touch that door! Because what happened is, the suction from the fire was sucking across. There were cans and different things on shelves, and so the higher up you get, the hotter the temperature gets. And those things were bent over like this as the fire came through at the ceiling. Those cans were like and ripped out. The fire department was extremely efficient, and fortunately 2 minutes down the road they got the fire out. We checked all of our flour bins. We took samples out of all of our flour bins in some bags, because flour will absorb odors. And so we took a coffee can down to the bank and had some of the people at the bank sniff the coffee can to clear their sinuses and check the flour to make sure that it didn't smell like anything, which it didn't. JB Construction helped us get back up and running. We were running in 11 hours after that event. 11 hours. This is a part of the lab. When Star of the West bought us, they said, this is the biggest lab I've ever seen. It was the whole floor. And there's ovens in here for different testing, myelographs, for different viscosity testing, heaters for different things. Next one. Another picture. I think it's either Dennis Troutman or Chuck Parrish and Frank Storch sitting at the desk. We also used it for a break room for a while. Next. Look at that guy. Who would have thunk it, huh? So this was a mini mill. It's an experimental mill, and we used to use it at harvest time mainly, or if they were trying to test some other type of grind. It's a really tiny mill. It was 1920, manufactured in 1920. And it has all kinds of little things in it, but we ended up shutting it down, putting it in and out of service when we started to get third-party audits. So, next. Okay, this is a small sample sifter. So you would take a couple of pans, put them under the rolls, get a sample, weigh the sample, sift it, and then weigh the sifted sample for the throughput. And then the guys would be able to adjust their roll settings to get the perfect grind. Next. Aha, the still. I always wanted to put some corn in there, but they wouldn't let me. We had this still forever. A lot of the tests in the early days used distilled water. All of our batteries in our forklifts, we used battery-powered forklifts. We would fill them with that distiller. That's still in the building. This is the top of the crib where the fire melted everything. Everything was wood. The spouts were wood. They were lined with tin. There were big clamshells around this area. And that conveyor, that had a big 10-inch screw in it, and that distributed the wheat across whatever bins you wanted to put them in. There were 20 bins, 5,000 bushel bins for 100,000 bushel. This is the man lift we used to ride up there. So there's a little step and a little handle, and there was very little room going up through the crib elevator.
Here's the opening. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. So we had a big guy in there. He weighed about 350. And when he went up the man lift from the ground floor, he went up with one arm over his head so he could fit through. I'm not kidding. And you can see this pole right here. I don't know if you can point to that one. And then the handle up on top. So if you missed the step or you were asleep or something and didn't get it, you could pull that handle, or you would hit that and you wouldn't go over the top. Safety first. Okay, next. So this is the one in the mill, and this had a similar, it wasn't quite as daunting as the last one. So this was in the mill, it had the same function. And people used to stop by and, on their way home from the bars, and they'd look in and go, "What the hell?" Going up the man lift. This was the second one. The third man lift that we had was in the concrete elevator. And from the first floor to the first platform, it was 65 feet. And you were on a little step like that, and there was nothing around you except for a rope. So when you'd go up, you'd squeeze your cheeks in a little bit, hold the handle, and the handle didn't have a hole all the way through it. It had a cup. It was a cup, so and it was down low for the tall guys. We'd go up that man lift, and I'd have my hand on the rope, just in case. But it gave you a little bit of a worry every once in a while.
So I think the man lift was a complete belt.
Correct. It goes all the way up and all the way around.
I assume this arrow means this is the downside of the belt.
Well,
The upside is on the other side.
that's right.
No, this is the upside. On this side is the upside. The other side you came down.
Okay, because this side shows the arrow going down.
Right. Yeah, he's right. This is the downside. From there.
That's a joke.
Well, the reason they put the cupped handles on was at one time there was and this happened at the mill. I don't remember what the year was, but the night watchman, they had no lights on, and the night watchman was up on the other floor, and you'd have as it came up, you would have a handle, then a step, then a handle, no step, and it was down. So the guy had his hand out like this, and he felt the handle, and it was round, and he jumped on, and they found him at the bottom of the next morning. So that was a horrible thing. So this is part of the cleaning house. Brad took this picture because of the design, I think.
Yeah, I found, in going through the mill, I just found the appointments in the mill and the tubing and everything was just so graphic and artistic, and there's different colors. There was a movie years ago about a person that shrunk down to the size of a blood corpuscle, I forget the name of the movie, and you took a tour through a person's body that way. And in the mill, I felt like that little person because the mill looked, I just felt like I was in a living being with all these tubes and, just seeing all that stuff.
60s was really good for Brad. Black lights, 4 foot long black lights. Really good.
Grain mills.
Well, the interesting thing about this cleaning house was the old cleaning house was in the crib. And it was old. We were always digging stuff out. So this part of the building was in between the back of the mill proper and the crib elevator. So we built this wall. Ronnie Stamm and Stamm Construction did a monster job. They built this up. We put in the flooring and put all of this equipment over here, so we had beer break.
Are you in the flower stage now or the wheat stage?
This is in the cleaning side of the wheat.
Wheat stage.
Yeah, the cleaning side of the wheat. So let's go to the next one, and then, okay, this is part of the cleaning house. Just kind of a cool picture. These are air filters. Let's do one more. Okay, so just before beer, we'll get really thirsty on this. So these were the roll stands when I first started. Were these in when you first started, Lou?
No, they were already out.
They were already out.
Yeah.
Okay, so these were the roll stands. Inside the roll stand, these were glass doors, glass windows on them. Inside the roll stand, there were shaker tables. And they were made of wood, but they had a tin covering over them. They were hanging from cables.
Yep, Mike.
They were hanging from cables. And they would shimmy like this. There was an eccentric bearing inside there, and they would shake like this. On all of the roll stands at the time, and even still at the end of the run, on the line shafts, they were Babbitt bearing rolls, bearings, I'm sorry. They were Babbitt bearings. So inside of the casing, the cast iron casing, we would pour, when these Babbitt would go bad and the bearing would heat up, a couple of times on the roll stands, Roscoe Pownell was the old miller. He was there for 55 plus years. And he would send us down. The bearing would get hot. Babbitt was gone. We couldn't get it to cool down with oil. So he would have us put cold rags on it, wet rags on it. He'd send us down and say, Francis, down at Klein's, tell Francis I need a pound of beef suet. So we'd bring it back. He'd get out his little board, and his pocket knife was razor sharp, and he would peel off any of the meat that was on the Babbitt. He'd stuff it in there, and that stuff would melt down in, and within about 2 hours, hour or two, that bearing would cool down, and that would give us time on our own to pour a new bearing and replace it. But it smelled like a soup oven, a soup kitchen. So we were always worried that the rabbi was going to make a surprise appearance and bless the place to make it kosher. Now you can go drink beer. So in the mid-'80s, we did a conversion. So the bases of the roll stands were the same, stayed the same. Those were Alice Chalmers. And we brought these in. These are on roller bearings. It increased our efficiencies quite a bit, and it really turned out to be a nice job. Next.
Is that natural light coming down from above?
Probably not.
It was a mix. A lot of it, yeah, it's a mix of natural and artificial light.
At this point, I think we had gotten rid of the tethered light bulbs. So there might have been LEDs at that point. Okay, so this is cool because you'll see later we took out the old sifters that were in there from the 1920s to the 1940s. And we had these refurbished in our Ligonier, Indiana plant, and it took quite a few days to get this job, but they were running. That's not Brad's photography. These were running, and they run in, I think it's about 220 RPM, and they're in a 3-inch circle. And they're bolting the flour. That's why they were called bolters. Some people that started at the mill said boulders. They thought they were boulders. Okay.
Yeah, I took this, I actually held the shutter open for quite a while,
Yeah.
just to show the motion of the sifters. And it wasn't really loud, but you could hear the humming of the shaking back and forth through the floors. Because they shake back and forth like...
That's fast.
And yeah, so it was something to see.
Yeah.
Oh, and notice too, these beams are really big.
Yeah.
So what age would these be? 1890s, or would this be earlier?
Oh, those were 1890s, yeah, 1880s. Because these were original. I mean, we didn't take them out. And some of the beams, if you look real close, some of them you can see that they would bore a hole, and then they would put they weren't bolted together. They had a wooden peg, you know.
Yeah, all that was wooden peg.
Down at the bottom of the crib, under the bottom of the crib, where I'll show you a trash compactor soon, the beams up there were starting to crush down in, and so we had Ronnie Stom's crew come in and put up steel reinforcement. Brad always came at the right time. This was on occasion. Now you can see these are all aluminum pipe, and those were all wooden before. Behind them, these stands are the elevator legs, so inside of that is a belt with cups on it. And that brings the flour or the stock up and puts it to its respective place. So we cleaned up a lot of that back in the day, didn't we, Lou?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was usually when it was 90 degrees outside and 105 in the mill. Next. Okay, this is up in the attic, or the 4th floor. The attic was called the attic because in the first pictures that you saw, there was a hip roof in there, and there was one window in it, and they called that the attic, and after they added the 4th floor, the attic name stayed. Okay? Those are another picture of the new sifters. Go ahead. This was the finished sifter. This little buddy handled all of the flour that was milled before it went into the storage bins. And so all of the flour before it goes into the storage bins goes through a sifter and a magnet, and it goes into the storage bin. Then coming out of the storage bins, it goes through a sifter and a magnet and goes into either a truck, bulk truck, or the bagging, or rail cars.
Why is the magnet needed?
Any kind of foreign metal, and there's a lot in the screws. The screws are metal, so you want to get rid of everything. And so this was the original packer. This is a Bemis packer, and here are the Bemis hats that you used to get. And they also supplied us in the early days with bags.
What's the time frame of the flow there?
Of the
Days,
through the mill?
Hours, days?
You mean through the mill?
Yeah.
From start to finish?
To that point?
To this point? Well,
That point.
to finish, it would be about 15 minutes. Right?
If it was
Impressive.
temporary stuff, it would stretch out to hours, but
Right. But I mean, just the grinding. From grinding,
yeah.
it was about 15 minutes to finished flour.
Thank you.
It's moving through there. Everything that came through the mill would go to first break, go down to the basement, go up to the 4th floor, drop down through another sifter, or those other parts would go to their respective sifters. Goes back down, goes back up, goes back down, all the way to finished product.
Did it work 24 hours?
Didn't when I first started. I was palletizing one time, and the bags were coming off of here, and we threw them off our shoulder and palletized them. We even hand wrapped them with a roll of stretch film in the early days. Anyway, was down. The mill was picking up production. Pete had sold to Pepperidge Farms, and Sugar Cake Cookie was kicking our butt, and so we were staying longer and longer. And one day I was there, and he came down. I had just bought my Triumph motorcycle, 650 Tiger, single car with a lot of chrome. And he came down and he said, "Do you think you could stay for a couple more hours?" And I said, we're just getting behind, and it kept getting longer and longer. And I said, "Yeah, I got a bike payment. I'll stick around." So yeah, we ended up running 8 days a week, 24 hours. Because at one point we were buying flour to cover some of our accounts and bringing it in, reprocessing it, blending it in with our flour just to cover accounts. Okay, next one. So up on the top there is a bearing, and that's one of the bearings that was a Babbitt. And there's a pan underneath it because they had an oiler. You had to oil them. So inside of that Babbitt bearing, when we would pour those, we had Babbitt tools, and they were real sharp, knife-like things. And you would pull the Babbitt and make it nice and smooth. And then we would take a Dremel or another tool and put an oil groove through that, so that on the top and the bottom of that Babbitt bearing, when the oil hit and the shaft was turning, then that oil would go back and forth and lubricate that bearing. And they still use Babbitt in bearings today. It's a big user these days. Okay, this is another one of the mill. All of this, the white thing over there was the mill filter. And so there's a lot of aspiration, a lot of air, suction in there to take the dust off and self-contain it. So Brad thought this was a cool picture because of those arms that he might have been living in at one time.
And they're a lot bigger. They're a lot bigger than they look in the pictures.
They are. They're huge.
Yay, Brad.
Next.
Good job.
Okay, this, at one time, these are purifiers, and they're a type of sifter. They classify by particle size. Inside of them is a table that's slanted, and it's kind of shaken. It's got a screen on it. Underneath, there's a brush that goes back and forth, and they have these grooves in this thing, and this brush would go back and forth and knock the throughs off of the screen. So they had 7 of these in the beginning. They went down to, we had 3 at the end. Yeah, we had 3 at the end because we had added some other sifters and some other machinery that was more efficient. Next. Back in the cleaning house again. Tubes.
Yep, my favorite, lots of tube pictures.
Okay, Brad?
And this is just a scene in the fall, since I was there in the fall. This was on top of one of the buildings, I can't remember which. But you get a real...
That was in the crib.
In the crib, okay. And you get quite an amazing view of the city from up on top there, just all the way around.
Yep. Okay, this is in the crib. So down here was the packing bin. So we loaded flour into the packing bin. Down below it, on the first floor, was that packer, the Bemis packer that we packed out of. So you could go up all these steps, and it goes all the way up to the top. On most of the levels in the early '80s, when I was there, had big crocks. They were about 50-gallon crocks, 40-gallon crocks, and they were huge. And the crocks, they had salt water in them in the old days. And on top of the crocks were these red boards to keep the dust out. On top of those were pointy buckets, so that if they did have a fire up there, you grab a bucket and start throwing water on it before the fire. Because a lot of times in mills back in the day, they didn't really have the fire extinguishing that they needed. So that was always cool.
In the 2022 fire?
Oh yeah, this was that whole building.
So all of what we've been looking at is gone, is that right?
Correct. In this part, just in this part. It didn't affect the mill proper. I mean, there were some windows blown out with, but it didn't burn anything terribly in the mill proper side.
Just the back crib.
The crib elevator.
Okay.
And the crib elevator, well, we'll show pictures of that soon.
And the reason I took a lot of these pictures is just because it's really old wood. And it's really
original.
It's interesting to see really old wood still holding up, and you're able to walk on it. You just don't get that experience anymore, 100, 130-year-old wood. Oh yeah, explain some of the grooves in these things.
Okay, some of the grooves in these things. Now the crib elevator was built with 2x10s laid flat. Okay, they were laid flat all the way up to the top of the bins, and then they went with siding on that. So I don't know if you can see it from the back, but this is rounded off. It's very smooth. There's no splinters. You could rub it on your soft cheeks and not get a splinter. But there's a nail in there, and it's this long. It's, what is that, about 8 inches, 6 and 7 inches? So that was what that was made of. And some of these, and like I said, the elevators in the old days and the conveyors were made of wood. And this is what happened in the mixing leg down in under the crib. So the wheat hits that, and you can see where the grain is tough there and more sturdy, and it makes waves in there like sand.
Just from the grain moving over the wood for years.
This used to be a 2x10.
Oh my God.
Cool, huh?
Where do the splinters go in the process?
Where do they go? They probably are just extra protein.
Perfect.
No, those would get sifted out. Of course, this is in the grain side of it, so that's a whole process of elimination there. So, and again, the little knots in the wood, you've got little bubbles in there, and you guys can come up and see this later if you want.
What kind of wood is it?
I think most of this is pine. I don't know, can you tell?
Not oak.
I don't think it's oak.
No, it's not.
It's not oak. I think it's pine.
So the moving grain over the wood causes
Yep.
slow wearing away of the wood.
It'll do that to a line shaft too. If you get grit in the line shaft, I wish I had that line shaft from the 4th floor. I left it in Willard. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you that, and it gives you kind of an example of what was happening in there. So this is again in the crib elevator. All this stuff melted in the fires. Okay, here's the side of the crib elevator. Oh, it moves. It's like in the old days on the 3rd shift. So you can see the boards in here, and they notched out. There used to be a floor in here, but down on that side was a door that you could get in, and those were all flat bottom bins. And so at times we had to crawl in there and shovel those bins out, because the wheat would only come out, there was only one 4-inch hole or 6-inch hole in the floor, so you would get in there, shovel your butts off, and get that emptied out completely, sweep it out, and you go to the next one, sweep it out. Remember, Lou?
Oh, yeah.
So could you explain the construction of the wall here?
Yes,
The 2x10s laid,
yeah, they're laid flat, and then when they get into the corners, I guess there's no corner here, but they kind of bird nest, what do you call that, bird beak, and they would go like this to tie those in. They would stagger them. I lost that word, stagger. I like that word.
but the interesting part about this is each slat was what, 2 inches thick here on the wall?
Oh, these,
Yeah.
the boards,
Yeah,
Yeah.
about 2 inches thick, but they're 10 inches wide.
right?
So the wall is 10 inches deep of solid wood.
Yep.
So the wall is just solid wood, mainly because it had to hold up a lot of weight from the
Oh,
machinery.
sure. Now, the other thing is, we'll show you later, but there's a spot under the crib that I don't think we've gotten to yet, and there was a little bit of wheat leaking. So at times, later on, whether, depending on how you pulled out of those bins were moving. And when you went into the mill, and when you would go up into my office, and my coffee cup, I don't drink coffee anymore, but my coffee cup would be there, and it'd be moving. That whole building moves, and I think that was the design. So let's move to the next one. I get too gathered. And this is just another picture that shows the intricacy of the tubing going down, the spouting going down, and the elevator legs here. So next. Okay, this was on the 2nd floor. This was finished flour conveyors, and it had the patent in the clear flour, and I don't remember the 3rd. But this was lined also with tin, had a metal screw in it. And the next picture,
These are the screws, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Those are from?
Well, they're the shaft
They're
end
the
of
shaft.
the screw.
Inside
The
this,
screw is internal to the
shafts.
box.
Use vacuums?
yeah.
They do
Vacuums?
Vacuum suction?
Oh, you mean pneumatics?
Pneumatic.
Yeah. There's a lot of pneumatics in new mills. In this mill, you still, even in the pneumatic mills, you still have screw conveyors and drag conveyors,
Oh, okay.
but they're not wood. They're not wood boxes. So next, so we tore those out, and this one, this spout is going up there because they're not done yet. So what happens is in the old conveyor, there's a lot of space in between there. There's no drop bottom in them, so the only time you were able to clean them was when the mill shut down. When you're running 8 days a week, you don't get in there and vacuum. So they were an infestation problem from the get-go. These are close tolerance, and this door comes up and it's right on that screw.
So this is the screw, right?
Right.
That pulls the flour or
Yep.
grain through this big tube.
Right, and this was taken out and moved out of the way, and so was this, so you could close that. Okay? The dungeon, the basement. So, we stored a lot of shafts and a lot of pulleys down here because they would break. Some of the big ones were split in half, so you could put it up, chain fall it up, and then put the second half on, bolt them together.
So these pulleys are different sizes because different parts of the mill, there's what, one or two, there's a power takeoff that runs the whole length of the building,
Right.
used to.
So depending on the stock going through it, you had different sizes for the RPM.
Right, so sometimes you'd need a really big pulley just because it had to turn the machinery fast. Sometimes you would use a very small pulley if you needed power that would turn the thing slowly.
Can you tell he's got engineering background?
And it's so clean. All the floors are so.
It was pretty clean. I mean, for an old mill like that, I mean, we passed our third-party audits over and over again, and it was all wood. Okay, so a couple more.
This is actually a much older picture of when there were many more
Right.
pulleys being
Yeah,
stored.
we got rid of a lot. Go ahead. Okay, this is under the crib, so you see this little bit of wheat there, and I think there was some back here. So what would happen is, sometimes when you were pulling a couple of bins off of one side, that building shifts a little bit. So in between, you would get some wheat trickling down, and people would come running up, "There's wheat leaking out of here, are you overfilling it?" No, it just moved a little bit.
So this, you pointed out to me that this was original timbers from
Correct.
the original buildings of the
1936.
1881.
Well, yeah, this was under the crib, yeah, that would have been original, yeah.
Yeah,
Is that wood?
yeah. That's all wood.
This is all wood. And they ended up putting some metal in here, but you can't quite see it, but in some of these beams going in, they were cut up into it, and then the
Little bit of support.
the supports were in there, yep. Another part of the basement, the dungeon. So this was actually blasted with dynamite. That's all bedrock. And these are all bedrock. Soft bedrock.
Yeah, it was bedrock up to here.
Yep,
So all this
That
was
was all
taken
blasted out.
Blasted out.
yep. Next picture.
Well, first, these beams, I wish there was a person standing in here. When I went down here, these beams are unbelievably large. I can't tell you, 12 by 15 or something.
Yeah, that's about right. And you see the little fire extinguisher there.
Which is actually about this big.
Yeah, it's a
Were
big
you
fire.
afraid?
Huh?
Were you afraid?
How long had that building been there?
The cool part was when I took him down there, a train went by.
Oh, gee.
And you could feel and hear it, and just a low rumble like.
Yeah, it wasn't the sound you normally hear.
No, it was like-
this deep.
Was anybody around when the trains derailed with the coal in them, and they hit the bridge? That was like. It wasn't a big bang. It was just a loud growl like that, and that's similar to what was there. So you have a trench in here. That was used in case the river came up or they had water leaks, and there was a drain down further by the old break room. Oh, go back to that real quick. So these pillars, these were huge pillars. Ronnie Stamm again, Stamm Construction. We were having some issues with some beams that were starting to kind of get a little weak. So Ronnie came in and said, I'll make these real sturdy. So he made these huge pillars, filled them with grout, and then we lowered stuff back down on top of them. This will never move. Ron Stamm made sure of that.
So is this what he added?
These block.
Oh, this block?
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
see.
And those are like
Yeah.
8 feet or 10 feet wide, about the same distance this is. Okay? Okay, one of my favorites. This was the trash compactor. It is number 361, and it was completely manual. So you see the lid on the top, you would run the lid up on top. When you were filling it, you would take that top switch and pull that door down, fill it up with paper and cardboard, then fill it up as far as you could, and then put that door up. Then you would lower this And down here is a gear, and we had a long piece of wood, and it had a clamp on it, and you would tighten that down, just keep by hand. Then when that was done and you were down as tight as you could get it, you would drop the top door down, pull that up, drop the top door down, I'm sorry, leave that top one on. Drop the top door down, open the side door, and you'd run your banding equipment in those grooves, bring it up around the top, put a clip on it, and seal it, pull that bundle out, push it over by the door in the back of the crib, and we'd get about 10 or 12 of those, and the recycling center used to pick those up. Then they stopped or they lost manpower, and so we would deliver them down to the recycling center and drop them off. But I wanted to take that home, but I couldn't. Okay, this was 2008 when we pulled out these sifters out. These sifters were anywhere between 1920s to, I think the last one was E-sifter, and that was put in 1942, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty young still.
Yeah. Yeah, they paid for themselves a couple of times. So there's the new ones that were reconditioned. Look, I'm standing on the roof going, why in the hell am I standing on this roof? So we were helping. So this is, I mean, we had the road blocked and everything. Okay, keep going.
And look how tall that crane is,
Oh yeah,
pulling these sifters out of the
I
building.
think it was 230 because the head house was 165, I think, from the sidewalk. Okay, next one. Another sifter. Look, I'm helping. I wasn't just your regular manager. I got out there and worked. Okay, so this was a contract, and could have been an invoice, but it's cool, the calligraphy and everything on it.
Yeah, beautiful old design in the lettering
Yep.
and the barrel.
Yeah.
What would have been the date on that? It said,
Like that?
so that's 19.
Yeah, that's probably 1900s, yeah. Might have been a little later than, mid 1900s maybe. Next. Okay, this is a picture of the Miller's log from 1897, which I have at my house and is going to go to the Historical Society soon. So they would mark down what was happening with the wheat, the protein, what the germ was doing, moistures, and on the other side, they would make notes on, mill went down and we had to change a belt or whatever. One of the entries that I read in here was, Mr. Williams came back from Chicago from a convention. It was a sunny day and he had a good convention. And I thought, how good does it get? I love this industry.
It's nice to be
And I
the
still love
boss.
this industry.
It's
Huh?
nice to be the boss.
I guess, it wasn't me. It would have been Mr. Michael or Red, but no, Mr. Williams.
And I just like the photo. I took this one night
Yeah.
just after sunset because of the color, the blue, and the lights in the building.
And you'll see this later, but over here is where the attic window was, and they had added this on. So it stayed the attic. Okay? All right, so this was after the silos were painted. That was a food liner trailer. They helped when we were short on trailers, and we used to use them to run loads.
And you can see the Star of the West, kind of see the Star of the West
Yeah.
logo on the awning.
Is that inbound freight or outbound freight?
It could have been either, because we used them for
Right.
delivering to Pepperidge, and we also used them for bringing flour in. So this was the proclamation of the city of Kent to the history of the Williams brothers. It was in 2009. I asked the city during the Heritage Festival if we could do this, and John Fender presented it to Jermaine. If you want to flip. Yeah. Did you? She's a good gal. So Jermaine was very pleased with that, and
And who's she?
Jermaine was Charles's wife,
Wife.
Charles II. That was 2009. 2009. And also, that same day, I don't have a picture of it, but Ron Dawson had made pictures and framed it of the different varieties of flour and the Star of the West and Williams Brothers, and he gave that to her as well. Dudley on the left, his son Charles in the right, in the middle, and Roscoe Denver Fox Pawnell was in there. So these guys worked together for about 50 years, 55 years or something. Dudley was living up on Main Street at one time. Charles was living with his family on Bryce until he ended up moving into the big house. I took Roscoe when Charles had his hip replaced. I asked Jermaine if it would be okay if I asked Roscoe if he wanted to go visit, because Roscoe lived up on DePuyster Street, and his wife drove, but he didn't drive. So anyway, I got that fixed up, and I took Roscoe over to Charlie's house, and he was in bed on the second floor. There were pictures in the room of downtown Kent way back when, and so I was like a fly on the wall. I was in heaven. And they started talking about downtown, and they started on the picture like over here, and they kept talking and talking, and pretty soon they were off the picture talking about the sheriff going after some guy that went crazy drunk, and they were like, I was like, you're over by the couch, man. I mean, they were way off the picture. It was just amazing listening to them talk.
And here again, you can see the beautiful corner molding in the office.
Yep.
Never see that anymore.
What is it?
Corner molding is a long strip of wood right in the corner of the wall.
Instead of having a metal strip in there and having it painted over, this was all oak trim.
Or having nothing and just have it.
Hand built.
Yeah.
Hand built.
Well, it's all hand.
Very Amish.
Yep. Okay, so this is Roscoe and Ann Stesney back here. That was Roscoe and his wife Florence and Ann at Roscoe's retirement after 55 plus years. They weren't sure if it was 60, 57, they just said 55 plus. He was what, 75 when he retired? 73, 75? Somewhere in there. And hairline, dark black hair, walked bow-legged, used to yodel through the mill. And I started yodeling through the mill on a different machinery, but I can't yodel anymore, my voice changed. Okay, so this was at the retirement party. The guy standing up was Dick from Lumark Archway Cookies in New York. He happened to be here and delivered flour that day. Frank Storch is over here. Darrell Bilby was in maintenance. Frank was on the floor crew and loaded trucks. And Tim Burnett was one of the millers that we worked with. He was a great guy. All three were excellent. A quick story. When I was foreman, guys were breaking bags downstairs on the forklift. We brought flour up from the basement warehouse up to the top second floor warehouse. And you know, they would pull them out and they'd whack a corner, and every time they would whack a corner, especially if it was a bottom bag, you had to repalletize the whole thing. It cost money and everything. So I said, tell you what, to add some incentive into driving carefully, I'm going to charge $1 every time you break a bag. And when we gain all the money, since you probably won't learn your lesson, we'll have a cookout. We'll have a pig roast. So we went about, I don't know, 3 weeks, and I was gaining some money here and there. Frank came up to me one day and he handed me a $5 bill. And I said, what the hell is this? He goes, I know I'm going to break more bags, so you might as well take it now. And I said, Frank, that's not the purpose of the exercise. So we ended up having a pig roast at Mark Kuntzman's house. We called him Hartville because he lived down there. And Freddie Smith was the maintenance man at the time, and he could build anything. He couldn't read or write, but he could tear apart equipment and build anything. He built this elaborate spit, and we roasted a whole hog on that thing and had all of the crashed into the dumpster. He's laying on his side, and Roscoe walks up, looks at him, and Johnny's like, has his flame helmet on, which was really dumb. And he leans over to him and he says, "You gonna sell that motorcycle yet?" And Johnny said, "No, Roscoe, I'm not selling it." He walked back into the mill. He was a great guy. Okay, this was gut-wrenching. Reliving this. This was the fire, 22. And Pete Williams called me from Atlanta. He said, I see that there was a fire, and I said, yeah, it's just like Joe and I and the guys that used to work there are just torn up. He said, well, at least you don't own it anymore. Yeah. Because I sold it in 99 for the company. But yeah, they never figured out, and they never will figure out how it started. There are so many different angles that could do it. It was empty. All of the wheat was empty. Fortunately, they got it under control well enough where it didn't spread to any of the other buildings. And they didn't have any explosion, except for the one where they opened a door from the one side into, I think it was into the old cleaning house. And that's when that ball of flame went through the 4th floor and blew the wall out. It also twisted the building enough that it blew the windows out in my office. But I talked to the fire inspector, and he said, you know, there were papers on the desk that you used to sit on. They never moved. So it wasn't the explosion that did it. The flame was up on the 4th floor, and he said it was just like we would burn wood, you know, for art, and it was just scorched a little bit, but nothing was caught on fire. So it blew out the side of the building, and oh boy.
The bricks ended up partially on the car.
Yeah, that's how far it blew it out. So, go ahead. More smoke. And just amazing. So this was the concern of Howard Boyle. That was always his concern, and ours as well. But this showed what the citizens and the ex-employees were feeling that day. And I talked to him yesterday, or the day before, and he said, you know, we were so worried about it catching the bank on fire and the other buildings on the block, but he said the wind, and he thought it would fill the bank with smoke, but the wind was blowing from the southeast, and so it just took the smoke and the flame all the way out towards the river, which was a godsend, I think.
And away from the southeast is not common in these parts.
No. So yeah, it just keeps coming back, doesn't it? It's going.
Blown out walls.
And that is where the fire took place. The first one back because it went into that room. Oh yeah.
There were no injuries. Were all the chlorine
No,
cylinders
I
out?
think the guys that were that opened that door, I think they were pushed up against the wall by the force, but they weren't hurt. They were damn lucky they didn't have an explosion come through there.
This was many days later, and they were still cleaning up a lot of the rubble.
Yeah, I was there. I think it was over a week later, and it was still smoldering because I talked with a couple of the firemen as well. So I wanted to put this in because it had the Williams Brothers logo, and it had the gate there. And like I said, in the summertime, we'd have the gate closed and locked, and people would come in. We had a guy crawl over it one time, and we found him riding a man lift. What do you mean, man? He had one of Freddie Smith's toolboxes in his hand. It was pretty fun, pretty well. It wasn't funny then, but. So this was the parade of 2006. And meanwhile, while we were comfortably, that's Lou Lawson with his son. He's over here throwing candy out to the kids. And I'm driving, and Rob Anderson was one of the employees. He had great carpenter skills, and he built most of this. We helped paint, and we helped form it, and helped him screw stuff together.
It's pretty accurate reproduction of the
It was
whole
an extreme,
complex.
like I said, he was a hell of a carpenter.
So this is all wood?
Yeah, this is all built
Ah.
wood. Some of it was cardboard, some of this was
Yeah.
cardboard.
Huh.
But we,
I hope they saved it.
well, we did for a long time, and then somebody said, we gotta get rid of this. Once the quality safety people and GMP people came in.
The white concrete, we got, that is tin that you would run air conditioning through.
Yeah.
We got that down here from Wright Heating.
Yep, that's right, I forgot about
We
that.
did this on a Sunday morning, afternoon. We came in and we built all this. This is all, the concrete is corrugated, not corrugated, aluminum, like the fence.
Yeah, it was aluminum fence, yeah. And then in front of the truck, the girls were carrying the sign, and it had Williams Brothers Company and Star of the West, and they carried that all the way down. Meanwhile, my wife Wendy got out of the truck and noticed that the candy wasn't getting all the way over to the kids, and she didn't want it. So she ran back and forth, was soaking wet by the end of the parade, back and forth on both sides of the street and threw candy to the kids. Wendell! And so this was done while we were still running during one of the Heritage Festivals. I don't remember the year. But they put the big light up in the crib elevator. And I almost didn't do it. And I said, well, okay, we'll get it all swept up and make sure everything is clean. I was in that building in the crib about every hour that whole night until they shut that off, because I was afraid something would happen. A mouse would jump on a cord, or somebody would knock something over. So I was in there every time. Then the next time they wanted to do it, I think they did it on they put it on the Hometown Bank roof, and it got the same effect.
That's nice.
So,
Yeah, beautiful.
and we want to thank you for taking this forward. Beautiful shot, a beautiful shot.